till I die. I'm going to laugh till I die. That's my mantra. I'm going to live until I die. So what's going on? I haven't looked at a paper in several months. Anything going on out there? There is shit flying everywhere. I know, but I'm cool because I'm telling you I have seen that shit before. But I am actually feeling so optimistic that I went out and bought green bananas. And that's not something you do a lot at my age. I am so old.
How old are you?
I am so old that when I was in grammar school, they didn't have history classes. It was all current events. But I used to be young. I think then, didn't we all? These days, everything sags. I mean, my ass is relocated to another zip code. And my breasts have sagged so much, they genuflect more than a Catholic nun. So. But I did find an online dating service for super seniors. It's called Carbon Dating. But the good news is that in only 2 years, I will have paid off my student loans. But today there's a 24-hour news cycle. I mean, you can get the news on your watch, on your telephone. You can ask Siri or Alexa or the guy sitting next to you. It's fires, riots, car wrecks in Los Angeles. And in Washington, a totally different kind of train wreck. You know, it can be overwhelming. So it's important to chill. It won't be easy, but the world will not end tomorrow. It will pass. You know, it's probably my imagination, probably my age that confuses people into thinking I'm an adult. But it's tough being 60. Would you believe 70? It's been a hell of a week. This week we've seen the killing of a young, popular conservative guy in Utah. And they found a 13-year-old boy up in Washington with 24 assault weapons and guns made by 3D printer and ammunition and a lot of writings about mass killing in schools. Then they had a school shooting in Colorado where a couple of people were killed in a place not far from Columbine, which was one of the first school mass shootings a couple decades ago. And firearms have become the leading cause of death for kids under 18. Crazy. There are now more than 500 million privately owned weapons in the United States. 500 million. And more than 20 million assault weapons. You know, our belief in the sanctity of the Second Amendment is just incredible. Anyway, aside from that, I thought I should try and become part of the new Gen group, you know, the Gen Z group. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to be modern. And we kept looking for a letter like Gen X or Gen Y to define all of those that were north of 90, and we couldn't find anything. So we've settled on using Roman numerals, which makes me an XCI, and I swear I don't feel a day older than LXXX. So I'm going to tell you a story. There was this one man who lived in the Bay Area. We're going to call him Sammy. Everything in Sammy's life had turned to unmitigated shit, and his only alternative was suicide. So on this dark, foggy night, he walks out on the Golden Gate Bridge and starts to jump. And then he hears this high-pitched, eerie voice coming through the fog. "Don't jump! Don't jump!" And he hesitates, not sure exactly what's happening. He said, "Don't jump, my son, don't jump." And he looks around and he can see this really ugly woman, a witch, looking through at him. He says, "My son, if you don't jump, I will grant you 3 wishes. Wow. His only other option was suicide. Not sure. He gets down from the bridge. "Tell me, my son, tell me, what is your first wish?" And he thinks, "I'd love the money that I embezzled from my boss would come back and no one would miss it. Done, my son. What is your second wish? He says, I wish that my beautiful wife who ran off with my best friends would come back and have eyes only for me. Done, my son. What is your third wish? He says, I wish I had enough money I'd never have to work again. Done. You have 3 wishes. Can't wait to get away from this woman and find out if it's all true. And as he starts to leave, she says, my son, there's one thing you must do before these wishes take effect. You must make love to me. Oh, God. Nauseous feeling, just terrible, but possible. He makes love to her, gets him, starts to leave, and she says, my son, tell me, how old are you? He says, I'm 50. She says, and at 50, you still believe in witches? When I was a kid, centuries ago, we had ice boxes to keep our food from spoiling, and it was before refrigerators and freezers. The Iceman would come up in his truck and bring these cakes of ice that they'd put into our ice box to keep all of the food chilled. During the hot summer months, they would chip off little pieces of ice for us kids to suck on. But today, these icemen have been replaced by very unfriendly, masked, armed ice agents. You love that transition, right? I think we'd all agree when governments start rounding up people, locking them up or shipping them off without due process, it's bad. But it's not new. I know because I've seen this shit before. In the 1930s and 1940s, the Nazis did it across Europe, and 10 million people, enemies of the state, were slaughtered, including homosexuals, gypsies, and 6 million Jews. And blacks. After the Civil War, there was actually a congressional proposal to take all 4 million ex-slaves and ship them to Oklahoma and make Oklahoma a Negro state. And they might have gone ahead and done that, except they found oil. And all of a sudden, the white guys thought, that's probably not a good idea. In 1942, our government rounded up all of the Japanese Americans and put them into internment camps. These families had lived in Torrance and Gardena, San Pedro, Long Beach, for decades. They were given 2 days. Sell your house, close your business, pack up, you aren't Americans anymore. Then they turned to another minority, and they began rounding up flashy dressed Latino boys who were wearing what they called zoot suits. The boys were called pachucos, a very derogatory term, and the government gave them 2 choices, jail or the army. And again in 1954, there was Operation Wetback. Hard to believe it was actually called Operation Wetback. Nearly 500,000 Latinos were rounded up, put in cages, and deported. And that president, Eisenhower, we all thought he was a pretty rational guy. So what next? Let's round up all the old Jews and send them back to Boyle Heights. We're going to send the gays back to San Francisco and the blacks back to the Deep South. You know, I thought all these roundups might actually ease traffic on the 405. It never happened. Anyway, I'm being told it's now time for a commercial break.
Friends, there's a new miraculous laundry soap just announced from the laboratories of DuPont Chemical. It's called Fug. From now on, if you can't get the dirt out, fug it.
A round of applause for our announcer, Ron Coleman and his escapees from the Midnight Mission. In the background, a noise, a drumbeat most of us chose to ignore. The planet was getting warmer. Glaciers were melting and oceans were rising. Cows were producing more methane than milk. There are 6+ billion people on the planet. 2 billion of them get their drinking water from the snow melt of the Himalayas. 1 billion on the east side, where it becomes the Yangtze and the Mekong. 1 billion on the west side, where it becomes the Ganges and the Indus. The glaciers that produce that have now retreated 12 miles and produce only 2/3 of the water that they used to produce. Meanwhile, major cities like Kabul and Cape Town have had to truck in millions of gallons of water daily to feed the population whenever there's a drought. The Colorado River that feeds us here is dangerously low. But fuck it, I like green lawns. So a young man settles into an airline seat for a flight from New York to Los Angeles. Gets comfortable, and this lovely young lady comes and sits down next to him. And he's about to make conversation when she sneezes. And she goes, immediately after, she goes, oh my God, oh, yes. At which point he turns to a book and occupies himself. About 30,000 feet over, halfway through the country, he decides to talk to her, but once again she sneezes. Oh God, oh yes, oh yeah. Returns to his book, but just as they're landing, she sneezes a third time, and he goes, oh yes. He can't resist. He says, are you all right? She says, I'm fine, but every time I sneeze, I have an orgasm. Oh my God, the man says, is there anything you take for that? Pepper. We'd been arguing this issue since I got my first period. In 1972, women finally got equal rights in college sports. It was called Title IX. And look what it spawned today, a wide range of successful women's sports teams, role models for young women. A year later, 1973, we gave a woman the right to control her own body. Dark alleys and wire clothes hangers were no longer the only option. It was a Supreme Court decision called Roe v. Wade. Now that's been overturned, and we're back arguing when life begins. It used to be from the womb to the tomb. Now it's from the erection to the resurrection. And if today's shit continues, we may need to get those clothes hangers out of the closet again. So Max and Sadie were driving down to Florida for a vacation, the way all the old Jews in the Northeast used to do. And in Georgia, they get pulled over by a police officer. Sadie, who had been driving, rolls down a window. Do you know you've been speeding? The policeman says. She says, what did he say? He says, you were speeding. Ah. Can I see your license and registration? The officer asked. What did he say? He says he wants to see your license and registration. He looks at him and says, oh, you folks are from New Jersey. I dated a woman from New Jersey. It was the worst sex I ever had. What did he say? He says he knows you. The truth is, monogamy among powerful men has never been popular. Same shit, different decade. In the heyday of the Roaring '20s, President Harding actually built a tunnel under the White House to the nearby Hayes Adams Hotel, where he rotated 5 mistresses. I wasn't one of them. Franklin Roosevelt, despite having polio, canoodled with a very long-time mistress, a girl named Lucy Rutherford, long before he was president. And Eleanor, no longer her husband's favorite cuddle, despite giving him 5 children, seems to have settled down with a woman reporter named Lorena Hickok, quietly acknowledging, "I never met a dyke I didn't like." Those sentiments excluded from her biography. Eisenhower had an extended relationship with his driver, an Irish lass named Kay Summersby. Like everyone else, she liked Dyke. And obviously being away from Mamie for long periods of time had its advantages. But look, he won the war, so it's kind of hard to be upset with his tactics. And Jack Kennedy, handsome, good-looking, tousled hair, publicly in love with his wife Jackie, also shacked up with Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, and more than a few other Hollywood A-listers. Then the torch passed to Lyndon Baines Johnson, LBJ. And while Lady Bird was busy cleaning up highways and Vietnam was burning, he was stooping everything in sight, including a congresswoman. He proudly called his schlong Jumbo and would flash it at the slightest encouragement. Must have made for some really interesting cabinet meetings. Gerald Ford is rumored to have had an affair with an alleged German spy, and the first Bush probably needed solace from someone other than his wife Barbara. And then we come to Bill Clinton. Bill's exploits, they were legendary. He fingered a lot more than his saxophone. Then a shock. From nowhere, an erudite young man with a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful daughters emerges. Super dude, Barack Obama. He would become our first black president. And once again, we hoped our country might finally be that shiny example at the top of the mountain. Only we weren't. We were as racist as ever, with hatred leaching out from the sewers as it had for 2 centuries. He tried. He really tried. But sometimes the best intentions just aren't enough.
I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely nights when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again.
So Miss Piggy and Kermit were making love. And the telephone rang. And Miss Piggy picks it up and she says, "I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. I have a frog in my throat." It's embarrassing to have someone his age tell a dirty joke. Last time I told that joke, I got threatening calls from PETA, Frog Protection Division. I wrote a little limerick. I've seen this shit before, I swear. The pompous strut, the vacant stares. The plot is thin, the script recycled. The outraged stage, the logic stifled. It's history's rerun, and no one cares. So, I hope I made you smile a little. Sleep comfortably tonight, knowing that tomorrow when you wake up, our traffic will still be shitty, but the sun will be shining. Thank you. Ron Coleman. Jake Reitman, our director. Kevin Muldoon, Howard Wilson, and Hudson. Please join us next door for champagne and cake. How are you?
I'm missing first half.
Oh, well, we'll do it again for you.
Okay, good.